Security pulled black woman off plane. Then she pulled 4B in funding from the airline. The morning had started like any other for Maya Thompson. She had woken up early in her city apartment, enjoying the quiet hum of the waking streets below. As she sipped her coffee, she checked her schedule for the day. Today was supposed to be simple, a business trip to another state, a few meetings, and then back home by the evening. But little did she know that this ordinary day would soon turn into an experience she would never forget. Maya was known among her colleagues and friends as someone calm, confident, and very capable. She had built a remarkable career in finance, managing large investments and advising corporations on important decisions. Her reputation for professionalism and intelligence was well earned. But despite her successes, she understood that the world did not always see her the way she saw herself. She was a black woman in a field dominated by others, and she had faced her fair share of challenges. Yet she always believed in handling situations with dignity and composure. By the time she arrived at the airport, Maya was focused and prepared. She moved quickly through the check-in process, confident and organized, her suitcase neatly packed with essentials for her trip. The airport was busy, as it always was during the morning rush. Families hurried past with children in tow, business people walked briskly toward their gates, and announcements over the loudspeakers created a constant background hum. Maya kept her eyes on the signs, her boarding pass ready, feeling confident that the day would go smoothly. She approached the security line, ready to go through the usual process. She placed her bag on the conveyor belt, removed her laptop, and followed every instruction with care. Everything seemed normal at first, but then something unexpected happened. One of the security officers approached her with a serious expression. Without giving her a clear explanation, the officer asked Maya to step aside. Confused, she complied politely, expecting a simple check or question. She had gone through security hundreds of times before, and she had never faced such a situation. As she stood aside, another officer joined and the tone changed. They began asking questions, some of which seemed unnecessary or irrelevant. Maya answered each one calmly, explaining her travel plans and showing her identification. She could feel the eyes of nearby passengers on her, some curious, some concerned. She maintained her composure, believing that the officers were simply doing their job and that the misunderstanding would soon be resolved. But the situation escalated quickly. Without warning, one officer told her she could not board the plane. Maya felt her heart skip a beat. "Excuse me?" she asked, trying to understand the reason. The officer did not provide a clear explanation. Instead, he gestured toward the exit, insisting that she leave the boarding area. Maya tried to reason with them, asking politely why this was happening. But the officers were firm, their expressions unyielding. Passengers around them began to murmur. Some took out their phones, recording what was happening. Maya noticed the eyes of fellow travelers watching her, some full of sympathy, others with confusion. She felt a wave of emotions, shock, frustration, and a growing sense of disbelief. How could this be happening to her? She had done nothing wrong. She was simply a traveler trying to get to her flight on time. As the officers guided her away from the gate, Maya could feel her chest tighten. She had trained herself to remain calm under pressure, but the humiliation was sharp. People she had never met before were witnessing her being treated as if she were guilty of something serious, when in reality, she had committed no offense. Her mind raced, trying to understand why she was being singled out. She remembered the countless times she had faced prejudice or assumptions based on appearances rather than actions. Yet, experiencing it in such a public way was something entirely different. Once outside the boarding area, Maya tried to speak again, hoping someone would listen. She asked to speak with a supervisor, explaining that she had done nothing to warrant this treatment. But the officers continued to insist that she could not return to the plane. The humiliation was intense, but Maya refused to cry in front of the crowd. She stood tall, her posture reflecting the dignity she had always carried. Inside, however, her mind was spinning. She thought of her work, her responsibilities, and the people who relied on her. She also thought about her own sense of self-worth and the principles she had lived by for years. She could not allow this moment to define her, though it was a test of patience and resilience. Maya's experience quickly caught the attention of fellow passengers. Some approached to offer words of support, expressing disbelief at what had happened. Others simply watched, unsure of how to intervene. The situation became more tense as the airline staff tried to manage the crowd while addressing the conflict with Maya. She could see the hesitation and discomfort on their faces. Clearly, this was not a routine occurrence, and no one seemed to have a simple solution. Throughout the ordeal, Maya remained calm but firm. She refused to be intimidated or to apologize for actions she had not committed. Instead, she focused on gathering information and documenting what was happening. She discreetly took notes and mentally recorded details that might later be important. Her mind was already shifting from the emotional shock to strategic thinking. How could she address this injustice? How could she ensure that her voice was heard and that the situation was not swept under the rug? As she waited for further communication, Maya reflected on her life experiences. She thought about the challenges she had overcome, the obstacles she had faced, and the strength she had developed over the years. This incident, while deeply upsetting, was another test, a challenge that would require patience, clarity, and action. She reminded herself that anger alone would not solve anything. She needed to act with purpose, intelligence, and strategy. Finally, a supervisor arrived to speak with her. Maya calmly explained her side of the story, emphasizing that she had followed all rules and that she had been treated unfairly. The supervisor listened, but seemed unsure how to respond. Maya realized that she might need to take further steps to address the situation effectively. The thought of going home defeated and silenced was unacceptable. She had always believed that when injustice occurs, it is not enough to simply endure it. One must act thoughtfully and decisively. Maya's mind raced with possibilities. She considered contacting her colleagues, her legal advisors, and her network of professional allies. She thought about the potential for media coverage and public awareness. Most importantly, she thought about using this moment not as a mark of shame, but as a catalyst for change. The incident was deeply personal, but it also highlighted broader issues of bias, inequality, and accountability. She realized that her response could set an example, demonstrating how one could confront such situations with intelligence and courage. Despite the humiliation, Maya felt a quiet resolve building inside her. She would not allow this single moment to define her or diminish her accomplishments. She would act, but she would act strategically, using her skills, influence, and resources to ensure that justice was served. In that moment, standing outside the gate, surrounded by strangers, Maya understood the power of composure, clarity, and determination. This was not just about her. It was about the principle of fairness and the responsibility to stand up for oneself when wronged. As the crowd dispersed and the mourning continued around her, Maya took a deep breath. She knew the next steps would be critical. She had a plan forming in her mind, a strategy that would transform a moment of personal injustice into a demonstration of resilience and influence. She walked toward the exit, her posture tall, her mind sharp, and her spirit unbroken. The day had not gone as expected, but Maya Thompson was already turning adversity into opportunity. This was only the beginning, and she was ready to face whatever came next with courage, intelligence, and unwavering determination. After the humiliating incident at the airport, Maya Thompson stepped outside into the bright morning sun, trying to regain her composure. Her mind was racing. She had experienced moments of injustice before, but nothing like this, being forcibly removed from a plane in front of dozens of strangers. The embarrassment and anger were strong, but Maya was not someone to act on emotion alone. She knew she needed a plan, a strategy that would turn this personal violation into a meaningful action. Maya returned to her apartment, feeling the weight of the morning pressing down on her. Once inside, she poured herself a glass of water and sank into her favorite chair. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. She reminded herself that this was not the end of the story, it was only the beginning. She had always believed that challenges, no matter how difficult, could be transformed into opportunities if approached with intelligence and patience. Her first step was to gather information. Maya began by recalling every detail of the incident. The timing, the exact words the officers had used, the reactions of the airline staff, and the witnesses around her. She reviewed her boarding pass, flight information, and any security instructions she had received that morning. Every piece of information could be important, and she was determined to create a clear record of what had happened. Once she had written down all the facts, Maya began considering her options. She knew that a direct confrontation with the airline could be risky if handled poorly. Instead, she decided to approach the situation strategically, using the power she had earned through years of hard work in the finance industry. Maya was not only successful, but she was also influential. She had built connections with investors, business leaders, and financial institutions. Her reputation as a sharp, decisive professional meant that people listened when she spoke. Maya began by reaching out to a few trusted colleagues and advisors. She carefully explained the situation, detailing the treatment she had received and how it had affected her. They listened attentively, some expressing shock, others nodding in understanding. They quickly realized that Maya had more than just a personal grievance. She had leverage. Her professional connections, her investments, and her influence could all be used to encourage the airline to take her seriously. Her advisors suggested a careful, calculated approach. "You need to make your voice heard," one of them said, "but in a way that ensures change, not just punishment." Maya agreed. She wanted accountability, not revenge. She wanted the airline to recognize the wrong that had been done and to take meaningful action so that this did not happen to anyone else. She knew that one incident alone could spark broader discussions about fairness, bias, and the need for systemic change. With this in mind, Maya began drafting a strategy. She would start by addressing the airline directly. She planned to write a detailed account of the incident, including the emotional impact it had on her. She would also highlight her credibility, her professional achievements, and the influence she had in the financial sector. By showing the airline that this situation had consequences beyond just a single traveler, she could ensure they took her seriously. At the same time, Maya realized that public awareness could be a powerful tool. She considered reaching out to media outlets and using social media to share her story. But she knew this needed to be done carefully. Her goal was not to create chaos or attack the airline unfairly. It was to shed light on a real problem and encourage accountability. She spent hours refining her message, making sure it was clear, professional, and compelling. While she worked on her plan, Maya also began preparing herself mentally. She reminded herself to stay calm and focused. She could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but she knew that letting it control her actions would be counterproductive. Instead, she chose to channel that energy into determination and clarity. Each step she took would be purposeful, measured, and strategic. As she prepared, Maya reached out to a few of her colleagues in finance who had experience with corporate negotiations. They offered advice on how to use her position as an investor to influence decisions without being confrontational. They discussed potential outcomes, risks, and ways to ensure that her actions would lead to meaningful change. Maya listened carefully, taking notes and considering every possibility. Her goal was not only to address the personal injustice, but also to make a positive impact on the airline's policies and practices. By the afternoon, Maya had completed a comprehensive plan. She would first contact the airline's executives directly, requesting a formal meeting to discuss the incident and its implications. She would present her account calmly and professionally, emphasizing both her personal experience and the broader importance of fair treatment for all passengers. She would also explain the potential financial implications if meaningful change was not implemented, leveraging her influence as a major investor. Next, Maya prepared for public engagement. She drafted statements for social media and carefully chose which media outlets to contact. Her goal was to raise awareness without creating unnecessary conflict. She wanted people to understand what had happened, why it mattered, and how it reflected broader issues of bias and inequality. By doing this thoughtfully, she could maintain her credibility and ensure that her message reached the right audience. As evening approached, Maya took a moment to reflect on her journey so far. She thought about the challenges she had faced in her life, times when she had been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed. Each of these experiences had shaped her resilience, her intelligence, and her ability to act decisively. The airport incident, while painful, was another challenge she could overcome. It was also an opportunity to demonstrate the power of calm, strategic action in the face of injustice. Maya also considered the emotional impact of the incident on herself. She acknowledged the feelings of humiliation, anger, and frustration, allowing herself to experience them fully without letting them dictate her actions. This self-awareness gave her clarity and focus. She understood that addressing injustice was not just about external action. It was also about maintaining inner strength and dignity. The next morning, Maya reached out to the airline's executives. She sent a carefully written email outlining the incident, her perspective, and her expectations for accountability. She requested a formal meeting to discuss the situation and suggested specific steps the airline could take to prevent similar incidents in the future. The email was firm but professional, reflecting her commitment to both fairness and constructive action. Within hours, she received a response. The airline acknowledged the incident and expressed a willingness to meet. Maya felt a sense of cautious optimism. She knew that acknowledgement alone was not enough, but it was a necessary first step. She prepared meticulously for the meeting, reviewing her notes, anticipating questions, and planning her approach. She wanted to ensure that her voice would be heard clearly and effectively. During the meeting, Maya presented her account with clarity and composure. She described the incident, the emotional impact it had on her, and the broader implications for the airline's policies and reputation. She emphasized her experience as a professional, her influence in the financial sector, and the potential consequences of inaction. The executives listened attentively, visibly impressed by her poise and strategic thinking. Maya also suggested specific steps the airline could take to improve its procedures, train staff, and prevent similar incidents in the future. She emphasized that these changes were not just about compliance. They were about creating a culture of fairness, respect, and accountability. The executives agreed to review her recommendations and promised to implement meaningful changes. After the meeting, Maya felt a sense of satisfaction. She had taken a deeply personal and painful experience and transformed it into an opportunity for positive impact. She had remained calm, strategic, and professional, using her influence to encourage change rather than acting out of anger or frustration. This approach not only addressed her own situation, but also had the potential to benefit countless other passengers in the future. In the days that followed, Maya continued to refine her public message. She shared her story in a way that highlighted both the personal injustice she had faced and the broader lessons about fairness, accountability, and resilience. Her story resonated with people across the country, sparking conversations about bias, corporate responsibility, and the importance of standing up for oneself. Through this experience, Maya discovered a deeper sense of confidence and purpose. She realized that challenges, no matter how difficult, could be transformed into opportunities for growth and influence. She had faced humiliation and injustice head-on, and had emerged not only with her dignity intact, but also with the power to effect meaningful change. By approaching the situation strategically, Maya set an example of how to respond to adversity with intelligence, courage, and professionalism. She demonstrated that personal experiences of injustice could be catalysts for broader social impact when handled thoughtfully and decisively. And as she continued her journey, Maya knew that this incident, while painful, had strengthened her resolve and her commitment to fairness, equality, and constructive action. Maya Thompson had spent the past several days planning her next steps carefully. She knew that simply telling her story privately would not create the change she wanted. The incident at the airport had been humiliating, but it had also opened an opportunity for something bigger, a chance to hold the airline accountable, ensure fairness for future passengers, and make a broader statement about respect and equality. She was ready to act, but she would do so strategically, with precision, and with her reputation intact. Her first step was to reach out to the airline's executive leadership. She had prepared her notes meticulously, reviewing every detail of the incident, every word spoken by security, and every reaction of the airline staff. Her approach was professional and calm, but it also carried weight. Maya was well aware of her influence in the financial sector. She had invested in numerous companies and had a strong network of business contacts. The airline needed to understand that ignoring her concerns could have serious consequences, not in a personal sense, but in a professional and financial one. When she emailed the executives, she framed the message carefully. She described the incident clearly and objectively, including how it had made her feel. She emphasized that she was not seeking revenge but accountability. Maya also highlighted her professional role and her capacity to influence financial decisions. By demonstrating that her network extended far beyond her personal sphere, she made it clear that her voice could not be dismissed lightly. Within hours, the airline responded, requesting a formal meeting. Maya felt a surge of cautious optimism. She knew that acknowledgement alone would not be enough, but it was a necessary first step. She prepared meticulously, anticipating questions, rehearsing her points, and reviewing her desired outcomes. Her goal was not only to ensure personal justice, but also to advocate for systemic change, better policies, staff training, and a clear commitment to respect and fairness for all passengers. The meeting itself was tense but professional. Maya explained what had happened in detail, calmly recounting each moment while maintaining her composure. She described the humiliation she felt when removed from the plane and the impact it had on her personally and professionally. The executives listened attentively, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. Maya also presented data and examples showing how public perception and media coverage could influence the airline's reputation. Then came the strategic part of her approach. Maya explained that she and her investment group were significant stakeholders in several industries that had dealings with the airline. She outlined the potential for financial leverage, not as a threat, but as a tool to encourage meaningful action. She stressed that withdrawing support or investment would not be personal. It would be a consequence of ignoring accountability and fairness. The executives recognized the seriousness of her words. At the same time, Maya was preparing for public engagement. She knew that sharing her story in a thoughtful, professional manner could amplify the message and encourage the airline to take action swiftly. She drafted statements for social media, highlighting the incident, the lessons learned, and her call for accountability. She also reached out to trusted journalists, carefully framing her story to ensure that the focus remained on fairness, equity, and systemic improvement. Once her public statements were ready, she scheduled interviews with select media outlets. In each interaction, Maya remained calm and composed, emphasizing the broader message rather than her personal embarrassment. She spoke about the importance of respect, fairness, and equality in all professional and public spaces. Her narrative resonated with audiences, sparking widespread discussion and engagement. People admired her poise, her intelligence, and the strategic way she turned a negative experience into an opportunity for change. Meanwhile, the airline executives began internal discussions about the incident. They recognized that the public attention and Maya's influence created significant pressure. Employees across various departments discussed ways to improve policies, enhance training, and prevent similar incidents in the future. Maya's approach had made it clear that this was not a matter of simply issuing an apology. It required meaningful, lasting change. As media coverage grew, Maya carefully monitored reactions and adjusted her communications accordingly. She ensured that her message remained consistent, professional, and focused on constructive outcomes. She avoided inflammatory language, instead highlighting the importance of accountability and systemic improvement. Her approach drew widespread praise and attention, positioning her not only as a victim of injustice, but as a leader and advocate for fairness. The strategic combination of public attention and financial influence began to have an effect. Airline executives realized that ignoring Maya's concerns could damage both their reputation and their bottom line. They scheduled follow-up meetings, showing a willingness to listen and implement change. Maya used these meetings to present specific recommendations, enhanced staff training on customer relations, clear protocols to prevent misunderstandings, and a public commitment to fairness and inclusion. Maya also highlighted the potential for long-term positive outcomes. By responding effectively, the airline could improve its public image, strengthen customer trust, and demonstrate leadership in fairness and equity. She framed the changes not as punitive, but as strategic improvements that would benefit everyone, passengers, employees, and the company itself. This approach resonated with the executives, who recognized that Maya's influence extended far beyond the immediate incident. Throughout this process, Maya remained focused and composed. She knew that patience and clarity were essential. While the situation was emotionally charged, she refused to let frustration dictate her actions. Instead, she used her energy to plan, communicate, and negotiate effectively. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, combined with her strategic thinking, ensured that her voice was heard and taken seriously. Over the next few days, Maya began to receive updates from the airline. They confirmed that her recommendations were being reviewed and that steps would be taken to implement meaningful changes. This included revising protocols for handling passenger concerns, improving staff training, and issuing public statements acknowledging the incident and committing to fairness. Maya's careful and strategic approach was achieving tangible results. As the story gained more public attention, Maya also became a symbol of resilience and strategic action. People admired her for turning personal adversity into an opportunity for broader impact. Her ability to maintain dignity, focus, and professionalism, while addressing injustice, inspired others to consider how they might act strategically in challenging situations. Maya's story was no longer just about a single incident at an airport. It had become a lesson in influence, accountability, and leadership. During this period, Maya also took time for reflection. She thought about how much she had grown through this experience. The humiliation she initially felt had transformed into a sense of empowerment. She realized that by responding strategically, she had not only addressed her personal situation, but had also contributed to meaningful change that could benefit many others in the future. Her ability to use influence thoughtfully, communicate clearly, and maintain composure under pressure had proven to be a powerful combination. Finally, after days of careful negotiation, communication, and strategic action, Maya achieved a breakthrough. The airline issued a public statement acknowledging the incident, apologizing for the treatment she had received, and announcing plans to implement the recommended changes. They also invited her to participate in a consultation process to help guide the improvements. Maya's persistence, intelligence, and strategic approach had created real, lasting change. The experience left a lasting impression on Maya. She recognized that her approach, calm, measured, and strategic, had been key to achieving a positive outcome. She had transformed a moment of personal humiliation into a platform for accountability, fairness, and systemic improvement. By leveraging both her influence and public awareness, she had ensured that her voice was not only heard but acted upon. As she reflected on the journey, Maya understood the broader implications of her actions. She had demonstrated that individual experiences of injustice could be addressed effectively when approached strategically. She had shown that influence, professionalism, and thoughtful communication could create meaningful change, even in the face of adversity. Her story became an example for others, illustrating the power of resilience, strategic thinking, and leadership in confronting unfair treatment. Maya's success in Part 3 of her journey marked a turning point. The airport incident, which had begun as a personal humiliation, had been transformed into a moment of influence, awareness, and systemic change. She had used her intelligence, composure, and strategic thinking to ensure accountability, fairness, and lasting improvements. Her story became widely shared, inspiring countless others to act thoughtfully, stand up for themselves, and create positive change when faced with challenges. Through this experience, Maya learned that adversity could be a catalyst for growth, empowerment, and influence. She realized that careful planning, calm communication, and strategic action were far more powerful than reactionary anger or impulsive behavior. Her ability to turn a difficult situation into an opportunity for meaningful impact became a defining moment in her life, shaping both her personal and professional journey. After weeks of careful planning, negotiations, and strategic action, Maya Thompson began to see the full impact of her efforts. The airline had responded to her concerns with sincerity, acknowledging the injustice she had experienced and committing to meaningful change. What had begun as a personal humiliation had grown into an opportunity for accountability, awareness, and systemic improvement. Maya felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, but she knew that the journey was not yet fully complete. The airline invited her to participate in consultations designed to improve staff training and customer relations policies. Maya approached these meetings with the same calm, professional demeanor she had shown throughout the ordeal. She wanted to ensure that the changes implemented were effective and lasting. She provided detailed recommendations, drawing on both her personal experience and her professional expertise. She emphasized empathy, fairness, and consistency, highlighting how these values could create a positive environment for both passengers and employees. Maya worked closely with the airline's human resources and training departments. She suggested new protocols for handling security checks and boarding situations, ensuring that staff treated all passengers with dignity and respect. She recommended regular workshops focused on awareness, communication, and bias prevention. Her suggestions were practical, actionable, and designed to create a culture of accountability rather than simply following rules for the sake of compliance. During these sessions, Maya's influence became apparent. Airline executives and staff listened attentively to her guidance, respecting her insights and understanding the weight of her professional authority. She approached the discussions with patience, answering questions thoughtfully and providing examples from her own experiences in the corporate world. Her ability to communicate clearly and strategically made her a trusted advisor, not just a complainant. Outside the meetings, Maya continued to engage the public thoughtfully. She shared updates on the steps the airline was taking, framing the narrative around fairness, responsibility, and positive change. People followed her story closely, admiring her composure and strategic thinking. Social media discussions and media coverage highlighted her approach, emphasizing how one person's thoughtful actions could lead to meaningful outcomes. Maya's story became a source of inspiration, showing that challenges could be transformed into opportunities when approached with intelligence and courage. As the airline implemented her recommendations, Maya observed tangible improvements. Staff members were more aware of how to handle passenger interactions, security procedures became more transparent, and the company demonstrated a renewed commitment to inclusivity and fairness. Passengers reported smoother experiences, and the airline received praise for its efforts. Maya knew that her actions had not only addressed her personal situation, but had also created positive change for countless others. Throughout this process, Maya reflected on her personal growth. The airport incident had been deeply humiliating, but it had also revealed her inner strength and resilience. She had learned that patience, strategic thinking, and professionalism were powerful tools in confronting challenges. Her ability to act decisively, communicate clearly, and leverage her influence had transformed a negative experience into a moment of empowerment. She recognized that her response had set an example for others facing unfair treatment in any area of life. Maya also considered the broader social impact of her actions. Her story had sparked national conversations about equity, fairness, and accountability. It highlighted how systemic issues could be addressed through strategic advocacy rather than reactive anger. People admired her for maintaining dignity while demanding change, showing that it was possible to hold institutions accountable while remaining professional and composed. The experience strengthened Maya's confidence in her own abilities. She realized that she could navigate even the most challenging situations with clarity and effectiveness. Her personal sense of justice had guided her actions, but her professional expertise and strategic thinking had ensured meaningful results. She felt empowered not only by the change she had created at the airline, but also by the realization that she could influence positive outcomes in other areas of her life and work. As time passed, Maya continued to monitor the airline's progress. She stayed in touch with key executives, offering guidance when needed and encouraging the continued implementation of improvements. The company recognized her as a valuable partner, someone whose insights and experience could help shape policies and practices for the better. Her involvement ensured that the changes were not superficial, but deeply embedded in the organization's culture. Maya also shared her story with professional networks and organizations focused on leadership, equity, and corporate responsibility. She spoke at events and workshops, explaining how she had turned a personal challenge into an opportunity for influence and improvement. Her narrative emphasized resilience, strategic thinking, and the importance of using one's voice responsibly. Attendees found her story both inspiring and educational, learning practical lessons on advocacy, negotiation, and professional communication. Through these experiences, Maya developed a deeper understanding of the power of influence and strategic action. She realized that fairness and accountability could be promoted effectively when approached thoughtfully, and that personal experiences of injustice could become catalysts for broader social impact. Her story became a case study in how to confront challenges with intelligence, patience, and professionalism. As the months went by, Maya noticed the lasting impact of her actions. The airline continued to improve its policies, staff interactions became more respectful, and passengers reported a more positive experience. The company's public image benefited from the changes, demonstrating the value of accountability and responsiveness. Maya's role in this transformation was widely recognized, and she became a respected voice in discussions about leadership, equity, and social responsibility. For Maya, the experience had also strengthened her sense of self. She had faced humiliation, uncertainty, and emotional pressure, yet she had emerged stronger and more capable. She understood that resilience was not about avoiding challenges, but about navigating them with clarity, strategy, and composure. Her actions had proven that it was possible to turn adversity into opportunity, and that influence, when used thoughtfully, could create lasting change. Maya's journey also underscored the importance of preparation and planning. She had carefully considered each step, weighing potential outcomes and risks. She had sought advice, gathered information, and communicated strategically. Her success was a result of both her personal strength and her professional expertise. By combining these qualities, she had achieved a meaningful outcome that extended far beyond her personal experience. The story of Maya Thompson and the airline incident became a reference point for discussions about fairness, accountability, and professional influence. People admired how she had maintained dignity under pressure, used strategic thinking to address injustice, and created systemic change. Her story inspired others to approach challenges thoughtfully, to communicate clearly, and to leverage their abilities responsibly. Maya herself reflected on the lessons she had learned. She understood that personal challenges could be opportunities for growth, that influence could be used to promote fairness, and that thoughtful action could lead to meaningful change. She felt a renewed sense of purpose and confidence in her ability to navigate difficult situations. Her experience had strengthened both her personal and professional life, providing insights that would guide her for years to come. By the time the situation with the airline was fully resolved, Maya had transformed a moment of humiliation into a story of empowerment, strategy, and lasting impact. She had turned personal adversity into a platform for change, demonstrating the power of calm, thoughtful, and professional action. Her influence had led to meaningful improvements in policies and practices, benefiting countless others and setting an example for leaders everywhere. Maya Thompson's journey concluded with a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. She had faced an unexpected challenge, navigated it with intelligence and resilience, and emerged stronger than before. The incident at the airport, once a source of embarrassment and frustration, had become a catalyst for positive change, both within the airline and beyond. Her story showed that even in difficult circumstances, it was possible to act with dignity, leverage one's influence responsibly, and create meaningful impact. As Maya looked back on the experience, she felt a deep sense of pride. She had turned a negative experience into a story of empowerment, influence, and leadership. She had shown that challenges, no matter how difficult, could be approached strategically and professionally, and that meaningful change could result from thoughtful action. Her journey was a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the power of using one's voice for positive impact. In the end, Maya Thompson's experience became more than a personal victory. It became an example for others, a story of how courage, strategy, and professionalism could transform injustice into opportunity. Her story was shared widely, inspiring countless individuals to face challenges with determination, to act thoughtfully, and to strive for fairness and accountability in all areas of life. Maya had not only addressed her own situation, but had also contributed to a broader conversation about equity, leadership, and the responsible use of influence.